Hi, this is Mike from Minimal 3DP, and today I'm going to continue the build of the TronXY X5SA Core XY printer. This is part two. If you look to the top, I'll put a link to the first part of this video series. The first thing I'm going to point out is the instructions are horrible, which has been said numerous times online, but I didn't believe it could be as bad as everybody said it was, and it's pretty bad. The instructions don't list parts correctly. They mislabeled screw sizes. The screws all come in basically little baggies that have a label what all screws are in there, but it's one big clump of screws. I have numerous bowls with magnets in them so I can separate screws trying to figure out what's what. And in my first part of the video, I went ahead and built the structure of the printer, and now I'm into I need to put on the belts, and then the drive system, and then just hook up all the wiring. Now, where I left it in my last video is they want me to use zip ties to hold the belts on, and I just don't see how that's going to work good or easily. So I went ahead and printed out some, what is it, GT2 belt clips, and I've used these before. There's two different versions of them, one for a thicker belt and one for a thinner belt. I'm not sure which one I have, so I printed off enough so I have both. And I'll go ahead and start working on that. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. I'm sure I'm not covering everything here. I'm on hour 4 or 5 of putting this thing together, and I do have some experience putting printers together. So if you're new to this, I'm sure you're struggling. But again, feel free to ask me questions. I try to get back with everybody. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so referring to the directions, I have belts here, and it looks like there should be two separate belts in X and Y. Some end caps for my extrusions. Let's put those aside. And then these zip ties, but I'm not going to use those. I'll still keep them just in case. And I'm just going to use my belt clips. Now, I'm trying to figure this thing out. And it looks like we're hooking an X in the back here on the hot end, coming around the frame, and hooking to the front of the hot end. Now that's really hard to see because again, we have really tiny pictures. Try to hold that up. So what I'm going to do is, and it's looking like green is always on top. That's what we're going to hope. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the printer and make my camera set up so you can see a little bit better. I want to point this out. It looks like I have a hook here and a hook here for the belt. It's in the back. So if I'm interpreting the diagram correctly, I'm going to start green here, come back around, and stop right there. So green, no, green will start in the front, and then hook in the back. So let me go back to my diagram, and let's take a look at that again. Okay, so I have two coils of belt, and I'm willing to bet this will hook on to the front of the hot end, and then the end without a loop will be what I need my clip for. So if I'm interpreting this right, I've printed 8 clips, really only needed 4. So let's go ahead over and switch to the tripod view and try this again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go with the teeth towards the front here. I think is the way this needs to go. Hook that on there. Then if I'm interpreting the drawing correctly, I'm actually going to go around the top here. I realize this is not the easiest to see, but I think I have the belts correct. So what I'm going to do now is I'm taking my clips and I'm just going to go take this out. Okay, so I'm going to pause this and see if I can get some help to hold this steady while I do this. Yeah, I have the X belt on. Now the Y is pretty much going the opposite direction and it's going on the bottom connections here. So it's going on the bottom pulleys here and here. So let me go ahead and try to get that installed. Okay, now I have all the belts installed and straight up, it's a two-person job. Sort of keep the tensions on. Now, one of the things I noticed you have to be careful of, if you put the X on first, it pulls the gantry out of alignment. So what I did was I wound up pushing the gantry all the way back and making sure both sides were all the way against the frame, and then setting this up, basically putting the belts on. Now I think I'm seeing a little bit of slack back here. It's not horrible though, so I'm going to leave it as is. Getting these tight is really hard. And I could see, again, that was another part of the reviews that were a problem. Now, one of the things I did was, once I have them up there, you need to trim them if you're going to try those clips, because otherwise you have way too much slack. And so I wound up clipping things to get it the lengths more manageable. So right now I sort of have that set up where I feel, I don't want to say super comfortable with it, but I feel comfortable enough where I feel like this is going to work. So it looks like we're switching over here. I was on step 9, and I think I have everything correct. We're going to switch over now to step 10. Step 10 is installing the extruder, and that all comes as one piece. From the look of it, it's a plastic extruder. I don't plan on keeping this. When I do the VC bot upgrades, I'm going to go, I'll wind up going direct drive. Let's go ahead, and this needs to be on the back right corner, it looks like, and pretty much right underneath of the X stepper motor. It's going to be installed, if I'm reading everything correctly, right back here. So let's go ahead and install that. Now I need to install this where tube coupler is pointing up and to the back. So let's go ahead and just get this set up. Now, a peanut did not feel like it caught. So I'm going to loosen this up. Try again. There we go. So now this clip off ties around the tube. I'm just going to use this default PTFE tube. I do have some Capricorn, but I said I'm probably going to wind up changing this. So let's put that there. Install. So that was a quick and easy step. So let's go down to step 11. Looking at the instructions, I'm going to have 3 pieces I need to install: spool holder, filament detection, and then the Y end stop. So all of this is going to be installed on this side of the printer. So it'll be the same side as the extruder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the Y end stop right here in the top corner. Yeah, the Y end stop needs to be installed in this corner. So I'm going to move it up because I want to leave the corner here exposed because I have clips to put over that. This is just one here with T-nuts. Looks okay. So let me just check. Yeah, that's installed in the proper place. Then we're going to install filament spool holder. If I had to guess, there's probably a ton of these online to do something different here. They're fancy here. It's just a basically piece of cut metal. So again, T-bolts, because I don't want the spool to hit the desk. Okay, that feels tight. The filament runout sensor looks like it's going to go in between this right here. I might wind up moving things around a little bit. Yeah, it's nice and tight. So we're finished step 11. So let's keep going. Now, it's on the end caps here of extrusions, so I can go ahead and do that. It has I have one of the aluminum profile seal. It's in blue here. I really don't want that right now, so I'm just going to leave that off. And then they say they're using 4 binder clips to hold the bed on. Actually not. These are a little bit nicer. These are little clips, and I actually like these. I've looked at buying these from my under 5 Plus, because that should keep the hot end from bumping into these. These are a lot lower profile. Now maybe they don't hold the bed on quite as good. Let's go ahead and get the bed installed, and then I'll put the corners on. There's an interesting touch here I just want to point out. I actually have marks here where those clips are supposed to go. So brush that off. Let's go ahead and see how good these clips will actually. One of the things I read about this was the bed takes forever to heat up because it's 12 volt, but I don't think that's the case in this version. I checked that, and the power supply is 24 volt. Forgot to look under the bed to check, but one of the first experiments I'll do, probably off camera, is check how fast the bed actually heats. It doesn't feel bad. It feels pretty good. And I'm just going to, all these are is the bits that go in here to cover the ends. I'm going to do those off camera because I think you can figure out how to do that on your own. Okay, I have all the corners in. It's time to begin the wiring process. It's going to be hard to see this. Basically, I'm going to connect all the wires. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to have a connection belt going from the host box up to the top here. Nothing else looks particularly funky. So let me go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and start doing these connections. I'll leave the camera on. So we have, these are actually put together with twist ties. So I'm going to have to be really, really careful I don't nick any of these cables, which again, that's careful and me don't necessarily go together. I mean, I'm sure you're now sitting through watching me bumble through this thing. Let's see what this is. This is the Y end stop. So this one's going to come up here. Again, make sure the power supply is not plugged in. So we don't want that. Now, I'm going to point out, head here for a minute. So I'm plugging in the Z down here at the bottom. Just a little awkward position. Go. Now, on the directions, they're calling this Z1 and Z2. I'm trying to do these one side at a time, so that way That's the Y motor, which is in this back corner here. Now, I see that I need a little wire management here. Okay, now they're calling the Z1 and Z2, which is not common convention. And like I said, I don't like how those wires are right now, but you can always change those. I'm gonna go to the back corner here. Use the plug for the heated bed. Now I'm noticing that the power is in the back. It'd be nicer if it was on the side. Which again, maybe that's another reason it'd be easier if it was over here, but the power is actually back here. Yeah. Now let's go ahead. It's the X stepper. So that's tangle this a little bit. That's going to be right here. That's the motor leaning up. Filament runout sensor. Yeah. I want to switch back over here because I already noticed something. Directions. I'm going to point out they're showing the F stop as colored wires. It's not. They're showing the Y stop as colored wires. It's not. In fact, the only thing red here is the power supply, the hotbed, and the bed temp sensor. Everything else is black wiring. So don't look for the colors. You're going to have to look for the little labels on the wire. That's my public service announcement. I'm sure this goes. This is E, I'm sure. It's in under here. So that's in. Now, the last thing I have is this ribbon cable, I think. So I'm going to real carefully snip this. I think I am going to have to turn this, turn it some more so maybe you can see too. So that's snapped in. Come back over at our directions. It looks like everything. So the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and plug her in and then see if it turns on. Pause for a second till I find the power cord. I'm going to be honest, this is the second time doing this because I've somehow lost the video turning this on. But I can tell you that the printer turns on and I've run all the tests, everything's running. I'm not going to make you wait for first print, but as of right now, everything's set up. And I may do a YouTube short tomorrow with the first print, but everything's all set up. So let me just give my final thoughts. What I will say is this is probably the hardest printer I've ever put together. It is pretty much from scratch. The documentation's awful. Things are mislabeled. The instructions I don't think are clear. I'm sure if you're putting together a printer for the first time, this definitely isn't for somebody new. It's a $400 printer normally, and in my mind, $400 printer should have very good instructions. Now, I got it for $189 on sale, but I still believe at that price point, you should be getting something that has very good instructions. That are, the fact that it doesn't is pretty crappy. Although in my case, I got it cheap, so I'm pleased with that. And I'm also looking forward to do the BC pod upgrades. I think I mentioned in my first video, I'd love to get a one, but I just don't have the money for that. So this is the best I could do right now. Eventually, who knows what'll happen. Now, 100%, if you're following along with this, you're probably going to have questions. Please post them in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. If you like what I'm doing, please give me a thumbs up. Also, feel free to subscribe. I'd also love to hear your input as to what I should be covering next. I want to thank you for your time, and you have a good night. Thanks, Mike Minimal 3DP.